Welcome to another video. We're going to make this lovely soft blanket in this video. I'm going to show you how it was done with this lovely yarn. It is stretchy, it is soft, and 100% polyester. And you can loop these loops through each other in all sorts of configurations to make all sorts of amazing things. So let's get on with it. For this project we need 50 in a row to be the length of our project, and that's about 2.5 feet long. While we count these out, we're going to take a look at these fun fingering loops. That's what they're called. They're by Jubilee Yarn Minnesota. Each skein or ball is 7 meters, 7.6 yards long, and it has washing and drying instructions on the packaging, and it's formed of all these little loops. And I'll put a marker where the 50 is, and I'll just double check that that is definitely 50 before we begin. So this is quite important. We definitely need it to be correct. So we will start off by making a nice pigtail or chain all the way along. And this will be our nice and neat first edge. This edge is quite important not to miss any loops, because this is setting the length of our entire project. So when we reach our 50 marker, we know that's where it's going to begin, and we've got this nice pigtail, whatever you want to call it, braid. And we're going to start off by using our working yarn and looping one loop through each loop of the braid all the way down the whole length of it. And it's just a case of making sure, trying not to miss a loop and having one sticking out. If you do, it's not too big of a deal. We can fix it. And just a process. Pull one through, move to the next loop, pull another one through until you get to the very end. And then at the end we're going to just make a braid, so the last one is just going to be one loop, and then we start the next row and loop through it again to work our way back the other way. Now when we're working left to right, we cross the left one over the right loop, like so. When we work in this direction, and we get the next loop in the chain, poke that through the left hand side one. Bearing in mind they're crossed over. Keep working your way along, and we do that all the way to the other end and back again. For some reason the camera didn't catch that end, but I'll do that on the next layer if we can, just so you can see. And when we get to the end, we're just going to do a loop through. We're not going to cross them because we want a nice braid up both edges of the blanket, as well as the bottom and the top. So in order to do that, we'll just do a little braid. We won't crisscross them. But now we're working our way back across. Technically those two on the end are actually on the fourth layer. They should have had another loop put through. I didn't notice at the time, but it shows how forgiving this loopy material really is. It's quite stretchy, quite forgiving, and you can just undo it if you notice the mistake and just go back and do it again. You haven't stitched anything in or anything like that, so you can just undo your mistake and redo it if you wish. So we'll keep going all the way along, just cross them over and loop through each one. We're working left to right, so the left loop is crossed over the top of the right. When we're working right to left, we're coming back the other way. We'll do it the other way around. so that we get this nice zigzag effect going up the blanket length. On the end one here, we'll just put a loop through it. I end up doing 2 on each end, but that's the other thing. You could undo the whole thing and just start all over again, but I went with it. It just kind of looks nice. If it was absolutely perfect all the way through, it would look like a machine made it, and I'm like, nah. So here's another ball of yarn. You'll have to attach one when you run out. We've used up 7 meters, so let's rip this out, get another one, and you can snip the loops to have a little length to attach on with. And I left it a bit tight actually to attach it. I shouldn't have gone right up to the edge. Should have left a little bit to work with, but it worked, it worked. Just pull it tight, make a knot. I decided to knot it. Some people use a bit of thread, needle and thread, and stitch it together. It's not so lumpy a knot then, but I decided I wanted no chance of it falling apart in the wash or something, and I just wanted to make sure that it was definitely knotted on. If it feels like the knot is going to be too hard, then you could just stitch it instead, but it seemed okay. So we're working right to left now, so we'll put the right loop over the left. The right loop is at the top, and we'll work our way along to the edge, to the other end, and back again. And it was a lengthy process. I'm making it look fairly quick here, but I just want to show you, some little instances along the way, attaching more balls of yarn when you get that far. And I'm rolling the yarn up underneath my arms as it gets longer and longer. Work your way all the way along and all the way back. And it's super soft to lean on. It's not rough like when I was doing the hook with the latch. That is quite sharp on your arm. So we eventually get to the point where you haven't got enough yarn left to do another level, another row. So we move to the end. This will now be the top, and we'll just braid this along the top. So we've got a braid at the bottom, 2 braids up each side, and now a braid along the top. So there's a nice edge to this blanket. There's no end loops that could get caught on anything or ripped out. Work your way along towards the start, towards your working yarn, which there isn't much left of it, and then we'll just snip off that working yarn with enough left to tie off. I decided I was making a blanket for my mum, so Mum, if you're watching, this one's for you. Snip it right down the heart of that loop, and you'll get a nice little length of material to work with, a little length of yarn. I'm also going to snip the end loop and pass that through the last loop in the chain, so that we don't end up with one weird sticking out loop. We'll just cut that loop out and just loop it through and tie it off. Like I said, I don't mind if it's a bit of a knot there. I think the lump of the knot will be lost in amongst the softness of the whole blanket. You won't even notice it's there. But if you're worried about that, you could stitch it instead with a needle and thread. Just pull that up nice and tight, snip the rest off. That's not needed. I don't want it catching on anything, so I'm going to snip it fairly tight. Some people weave it in, but I'd rather not. So we can look over that, see what we've done, see if there's any little errors that might need adjusting. It's stretchy and it's super soft and warm. There are a couple of things we need to take care of. One is this a tail where we began, but I decided you didn't need to see that, so I would film that just off camera, just in the corner there where you can't see what I'm doing. I looped it through one of the loops and then back through itself, And I did that twice. You don't need to see this, but I thought, you know, I'll just do this right off the corner where you can't see it. Because that's how I was feeling at the time, you know. I didn't think, oh, I need to be on camera for this. No. So I just did that twice and snipped off the excess. And then have a good look over it, see if there's any dodgy bits that might need adjusting. It's quite nice looking from the back as well. It's this sort of weird, see, there's a lumpy bit, but that's just part of the fabric and it's still soft, so it didn't really matter. I didn't want to mess with it. But there is a loop, an extra loop. Oh no, what are we going to do with the extra loop? Well, it's not a problem. As long as you don't snip through the main bit of yarn, you can just snip it off. Perfect. Lovely. So in that whole process, I used 5 skeins or balls of yarn, and this is all that was wasted. Well, I won't say wasted, I'll say spare, because I will use bits of it in other projects, so that will go in my odds and sods drawer to be used at a later date. It's now nice and soft. There are no weird bits that might get caught on anything. I tried to back the camera off so that you could kind of see how big it was, but it's a nice lap size for that, for 5 skeins, 5 balls of yarn. I think it came out a fair decent size. 30 inches by 32 inches, I believe it ended up being. It's a close-up look at it for you. Just have a look at that. You can see how stretchy it is and super soft, super duper soft. And there we go. I made this tag with the instructions off of the label. I cut them out, glued them to the tag, and I'll tag that to it. Got one of these bags that you can suckle the air out with a vacuum cleaner. So I put it in there, suck out all of the air, as much as I can anyway, put the cap on, and job done. And if you made it this far in the video, please consider dropping a like or a subscribe, that would be great. And finally, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.